When we look at the historic study of leadership, this goes back years and years. And there's many different ways of looking at how leadership is studied. A traditional way is looking at the characteristics of a leader. And this is one of the first ways that leadership was studied. It's how leaders present themselves, the personality that they exhibit. The thinking is that if you were to act like a leader, you can become a leader. If you have certain personality traits, whether they're innate and born in, great, or do you then try to develop them or learn those by patterning yourself after others that have those traits? This is a characteristic approach to understanding leadership. Another approach to understanding leadership was behavioral. It examined the tasks that leaders performed, such that if you were to become a leader, you'd have to be proficient in executing those tasks. This then led right into the roles that leaders would play. Oftentimes, this was positional on the organization chart. But it also got into the study of the power. This gets into the positional power, the power and authority that goes with the rank in a hierarchy, versus personal powers. And we can address these later in another learning element, but they're tightly associated with the leader role itself and how that leader can act relative to the powers that they have at hand. And what is a leader without followers? A single person, as a traditional way of thinking about it. So leadership is often then studied relative to the relationship with others. Sometimes this is a one-to-one dyadic relationship. Other times it's more of a group dynamic, looking at the interactions of the team and the role that the leader has within that team. These are historical ways that leadership has been studied. But the different perspectives then of leadership often then drive different models of what a leader is. Shifting then to leader models. This is a brief overview. There's huge textbooks and very large books in general about different leader models. The image here is somewhat traditional in that the leader is out front, pointing the way, and all the followers are really carrying him, moving the group forward that way. This is somewhat of a limited thought process. So let's go into some of the more common leader models. The first is the one that everyone's familiar with, the charismatic leader. This comes right out of the personality. The person that is larger than life. Everyone is attracted to their image, the way they carry themselves. Closely associated with this is the heroic leader. This is the leader that comes in at a time of crisis to turn it around, to save the organization. Both very closely associated with the single larger than life image of what a leader is. There's also then the autocratic leader, the I am the boss, so do it my way type of leader, versus a democratic leader model that really involves others more in the process. So this is kind of two alternatives, the autocratic versus the democratic leader model. There's also then the laissez-faire, the leader model of really not doing much. You become more of a figurehead without doing anything. But this is in some contrast then to the micromanagement of overly involved. So these would be two extremes on the same dimension. One doing nothing and the one doing too much. Most leaders would obviously be in the middle, but these are leader models of those two extremes. Within the context then of the relationship with the followers, there's a whole area of study called followership. What makes people want to follow someone? Developing good followers. Not necessarily developing yourself as a good leader, but developing followers. Closely associated with this then is servant leadership. This is also looking at the relationship, but the leader is examining what he or she can do to help the followers be more productive within their role. So followership looks at it from the aspect of what does it take for the leader to have people follow versus what can the leader do to help the followers be more productive in their role. There's also then the emergent and situational. Emergent leadership comes about during times of crisis where people who don't have a normal leader role will step into the void. Situational leadership really is an environmental point of view of what does this particular time and place require of the leader. This type of situational approach to leader requires different leaders to come forward at different times. A leader at one time may need to morph into another leader model as the environment changes, or oftentimes a leader is pushed out. While successful in the past, that leader model no longer applies successfully going forward into the future. So sometimes a successful leader is only successful within a particular situation. That situation changes, that leader will have to change its leadership model or be replaced. These are the traditional ways of looking at leaders and the role they play in an organization.